So we just want to start by saying Yoshua to the organizers for having us and putting this on. Yoshua to the first peoples of this place, of this land. Yoshua to all of you for coming and listening to us, and Yoshua to our friends here at the University of Washington that contributed quite a bit to the Sahpihnîich project. And kind of our connections here. So yeah, thank you everyone. So we'll start off with a song. This wasn't planned, but it kind of came out this morning. We have a song that was written or created by our boss at our wǝտրbialtxws for our program. We call it Íshyuux, which is our elk song. We created this song to bring into the schools and to help people get to know the animals that we work with and help people get to know our elk. This song is about the first 5 elk that we GPS collared in Karuk Aboriginal lands, using a trapping method that we learned from the wǝtë tribe, using no drugs and just physical capture trapping. And we're currently the only group using that method in the state of California. And so for elk. And so this song, the lyrics are, I'll just share them with you, and then we'll play our boss sing along, we'll sing along with him as well. So the lyrics are, Íshyuux which is elk are our friends. Íshyuux elk are our people. And then we have Sahpihnîich, that is the first elk we collared, and that is his name, and it means the first. Wǝtë which means little berry or sweetheart and girlfriend. And we collared her on Valentine's Day, that's why we named her that. The next one is wǝtë, and that means fire. And she really threw us around a bit, so that's why we named her that. And the next is wǝtë, and that means the one who lies down and goes to sleep. And she was just very calm. That was nice. And then we have Ikpikyav. So Ikpikyav is a swimmer. We collared him, and then he proceeded to run jump in the river. So we crossed the river, and then the next couple of weeks while we were tracking, I crossed the river like 10 times. So it lived up to his name. And then there's just the river that follows that. So.
This is my
So I guess we'll start with, we kind of did an introduction, but we'll start with some personal introductions that Ben and I have for ourselves. So Ayuki Kora, Nanfuji, Jessica Conrad, Karuk. So hello everyone, my name is Jessica Conrad. I'm a Karuk person. I come from the village of Karuk, and so this picture here on our slide is the backside of wǝtë, which is one of our sacred mountains, the center of our world. And the village that my family comes from is just on the front side of this mountain. And I lived there my whole life on my grandparents' place, running around with all my cousins and brothers and sisters. I left the river in 2011 to go to school, ended up at the University of Oregon, and while I was still considered tribal youth, worked for about 4 or 5 summers with a fisheries program, our Karuk fisheries program, and have now been working with the wildlife program for the past 5 years.
Ikpikyav, 93. Hello. How are you? My name is Ben Saxon. I am Karuk and Íshyuux from both upriver people and downriver people. Upriver Karuk and downriver Íshyuux. On the lower portion of the Klamath River in far northern California. My people come from Burles Peak in Íshyuux territory and Sahpihnîich village in Karuk territory. My family has been, hunting the high country around Salmon Summit since time immemorial. Salmon Summit is about 25 miles up the mountains out of where we live at Orleans and where we work, and it's the village of Penelnik. I'm a Karuk tribal member, and I've been working for the Karuk Tribe's Department of Natural Resources for the last 17 years. I started off working for the watershed program, and that was decommissioning old logging roads. And then I transitioned, in 2015, I transitioned into the food security project as a biological technician. That was from the bunch of folks, and the monies came from, and we collaborated with Berkeley on that project. And then in 2018, I helped start the wildlife program so we're really new. We've only had a wildlife program for like 4 years, 2018. So I'm the field supervisor.
So Ben and I will be sharing with you all today about 2 projects that our program has been working on. The first is our Íshyuux project, and that is our elk relatives, and our Sahpihnîich project, which is our beaver relatives. We'll be talking about how these projects tie into Karuk food sovereignty, as well as how they were aligned with a lot of the different large-scale restoration projects that are happening in Karuk country. Our Department of Natural Resources has been working for quite some time on revitalizing Indigenous fire management and just getting to the point where we can manage our landscape and manage for all of our relations again. And so food sovereignty is incredibly important in how it ties to our food security in the area. I just kind of want to show some of these, talk about some of the pictures here. On the left is just different pictures of harvesting and processing food from my family. So the top left is a picture of our ama, our salmon, which is incredibly important to Karuk people and to our food sovereignty. And this picture was taken last year, and it was the first year in 5 or 6 years, I want to say, that we had enough salmon to put in our smoker in a jar to have some to carry us through some of the year. Before I came up here, I was checking the cabinet, and we have 4 jars left, and our harvest season isn't until late summer and fall time. So we haven't really had our populations have been also not doing so good, but we're hoping to change that. The next picture just below is our black-cap wild raspberries that grow in mid-slope and in the high country. Just below that is my cousin. He's got a poofish there, our deer. He's gonna go take care of it behind my mom's place there. This is my aunt teaching my little cousin how to process huckleberries. And then just below that, she's like super interested. Just below that is my handful of elderberries that I got for a snack while I was out working one day. And then the map here, we just wanted to how this is an image of show kind of where we're located and the remoteness of our ancestral lands, and yeah, we're pretty far removed from a lot of different resources and types of things. So Ben's going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this here is Orleans. That's Orleans there, where we're from, where we live and work, and so we're actually 2 hours either way to the other coast or to I-5 from any like major grocery stores and stuff. So we have to. We tend to buy in bulk when we go to the grocery store, and do it monthly. And so some of the problems that we have being so remote is PG&E is so bad. The power goes out, and you can lose all of that stuff that you just paid for, even over months and years. You know what I mean? And then like deer meat and stuff that you put in the freezer can get spoiled. And also since our country is so steep, it's steep around here, and we have some harsh winters like the one we had. We have slides that happen, so you get even more, like it takes sometimes three days or 3 weeks, for a slide to open. So you want to like prepare for that in the wintertime so that doesn't happen, or so that you don't. So that's. So also, I just wanted to mention about a lot of our native families around here where we live, fall below the poverty line, and they qualify for monthly deliveries of commodities, government commodities that have little to no nutritional value. I think it's already mentioned too in the symposium. This has led to many problems within our families. Even in my family, my uncle got diabetes and heart issues, obesity, and just overall cancer and overall poor health. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, so one of the main issues in our area is access to our traditional foods. They're very abundant in the area. It's a very ecologically diverse area. But there's a lot of different policies and restrictions and hoops that we have to jump through to have any access, as well as the degradation of these foods because of mismanagement. And so most of our places where we would traditionally hunt and gather are occupied by the VEDS, the United States Forest Service. However, many Karuk people don't recognize their jurisdiction over our food sovereignty or these places, because we're there. We're still gonna do what we have to do to feed our folks, and this is often with the fear of persecution looming over our heads, as well as we don't have any acknowledgement of our hunting, fishing, or gathering rights. So those are some of the issues that we faced and why we have to supplement our diets and why we have so many of the issues that Ben was talking about. Food sovereignty also plays a major role in our culture. Karuk people, we view ourselves as fix the world people. And this comes out in our annual world renewal ceremonies, our Ikpikyav, and you can't really separate our food sovereignty from our culture, as so many of our practices are centered and revolve around managing for our food systems. We view it as our inherent responsibility to manage for our medicines, our foods, and our fibers. And so from that, I mentioned there's a lot of different restoration work happening in our area, and kind of where the missing piece was with Karuk management and Karuk people looking after our wildlife. And that's kind of where our program came into play. It's incredibly important for Karuk people to be managers on our landscape and with our wildlife. We know this place, we know our place the best. We have this intergenerational knowledge that, and just knowledge from people. Everyone on our crew has grown up in Karuk ancestral lands. We're all local Karuk people, and so we have this knowledge from just moving across this landscape our entire lives and interacting with our wildlife relatives our entire lives, and so that makes us pretty valuable to any type of work that's being done, and gives us this type of knowledge. It puts us in a place where we should be the ones doing the work in our lands. We also have a more vested interest in the work that's being done there and the type of work, and making sure that everything that's being done on our landscape, changing our landscape, impacting our wildlife is done in a good way. We're going to be there to experience any of those impacts, and so we care more about it as opposed to outside agencies or researchers coming in, doing some work and then leaving. And so leaving us there to be there, to see how things go, I guess. So that's where our program came into being, and we started with the first project we're going to introduce you all to, and that's our Íshyuux project.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the importance of elk in our culture and what have you. So, of course, food. Elk can create quite a large amount of food that you can also preserve and also feed quite a few people for a few days, like a week, 7 to 10 days of some of our ceremonies last. So it's kind of rare for us to have elk. But anyways, so we use everything, from the elk. The hides we make drums out of, and clothing and blanket to keep warm, what have you. Also, the hides and the sinew we use to support, fortify our little bows that we make, and attach the arrowheads to the arrow shaft. And that's what you gotta use to get elk, right? So, also, we use a lot of the antlers, and not just a trophy. We use them to make purses to put, and the bones also. So we make these purses to put our Íshyuux, which is Italian. This is our currency. Also use them to there's even bigger ones from bigger elk antlers that we make that are similar. They're like a carrying purse, but you can carry fire and then use that to start ceremonial fires and stuff put on the landscape. And then there's so many other utilitarian items that we tools that you use for digging, the antlers for digging, of course for chipping, like everybody knows you use the antlers to chip to make arrowheads. But we would also use them as axe and stuff to carve out and make our canoes out of cedar or what have you, and Íshyuux downriver they use some redwood, so they have nice, beautiful, redwood canoes. But also we use them to split the cedar into planks to make our houses, our sweat houses, and what have you. So there are multiple uses. And then today we some of the most beautiful art. They make earrings and hair sticks and what have you with our design, our basketry designs, carved, stippled, on the either the bone or the antler. So, yeah.
Unfortunately, elk were extirpated from Karuk lands in the 1800s, and Karuk people had to live without these relatives for over 100 years. This was due to overhunting to feed mining camps during the gold rush, as well as killing them to protect crops during this time. Also the decline in critical winter range habitat, which is along the river corridor, the Klamath River, due to the forced removal of Karuk people from our lands and the exclusion of our fire management practices. In 1985, reintroduction started, so we brought individuals from herds in Northern California and Oregon coast and brought them over and reintroduced them. 232 individuals by 1996. And so the Karuk Íshyuux that we currently have, our populations have grown from these reintroduced individuals. And not a lot has actually, since that reintroduction, not a lot has actually been done to take care of the populations of elk that we have in our lands. They're completely managed by the state of California, Department of Fish and Wildlife. They're mostly managed for elk tag lottery. In the state of California, we have a lottery for elk tags. If you have a hunting license, you can put in for different zones, and the hunt that they have in Karuk Aboriginal lands is called the Marble Mountain Hunt. And very rarely do Karuk folks get drawn in this. My mom got drawn one of the first years that she put in is like 1999, and she's the only local Karuk person I know who's got
She
drawn.
is like one of the only Karuk members that was able to draw in that lottery, and we try it every year.
Yeah, so like going through this route, the legal route. And so not a lot is known about their population size, and it's really difficult to figure out how to get a legitimate population estimate. So we wanted to answer some of these questions. We wanted to get to know these relatives again. Our people knew them so well, and we're so connected to them. And so we wanted to know about their population size. We wanted to know about trends in their population, how many were surviving what years, how many were dying off, different dynamics in the herd, so ages and sex and those types of trends, as well as their movement and behavior. We wanted our elk migrate. So they have their summer range in the high country, we call it. It's called Marble Mountain Wilderness. But Karuk folks, we call it the high country. And then their winter range is along the river corridor, so like where we have our villages and places. And so we want to know more about their movement and behavior and what they're doing on our landscape between these two habitats. We also wanted to know about their winter range habitat selection, specifically how our fire restoration projects and our fire management are enhancing or impacting their winter range selection. So this map here is a picture of the Western Climate Restoration Partnership's SOMSBAR Integrated Fire Management Project. It's a mouthful, but it's a very big restoration project that's been happening for a number of years that involves a number of different treatments we'll get into a little in the next couple of slides. But we aligned our Íshyuux project with this project to monitor elk response to those treatments in each of these 4 project areas. Ben's gonna share with you all about some of those methods.
So yeah, I'm just gonna go over these 4 methods with you that we use to study the elk. We used game cameras and put them on game trails, but the GIS department made this actually called a grid system within those 4 project areas, and we ended up putting 15 cameras in each of those project areas, making a total of 60 cameras, and then we also put, like maybe an extra 10 or so in areas along the river and private properties and stuff that we knew where they were going to be. So we used game cameras, we used GPS collars, like we mentioned earlier. We collared 12. We've collared 12 elk since we started capturing them in 2020. So, and at 7 different of our trapping locations that we have along the river corridor there. And then also we did scat sampling. It's checking or going and swabbing elk poop and getting the DNA that sloughs off in the poop. We ended up doing like 20 plus transects, and you have to go back and collect multiple times to get anyway, that'll be explained further on. And then we came up with drive surveys where it's just, looking and counting elk early in the morning when they're active. We did it twice a month. Once in the full moon and once in the new moon. So that's how we got a lot of our data.
Yeah, so I'm just going to, in the next couple of slides, go through a little bit more detail on those research methods. But this here is a map, and it shows kind of the zoomed in portion of those 4 project areas. We have wildfire boundaries on there as well as completed treatments. So I kind of mentioned the treatments. Those treatments range from cable and helicopter logging all the way to manual treatment, brushing, understory brushing, pile burning, broadcast burn, multiple years, broadcast burn in the same area, and other types of logging and combinations of all of those treatments in some areas. Also includes our winter range scat sampling locations for 2017 through 2019, as well as our game camera trap locations and those cameras that got captures of elk on them. And so with our game cameras, we were looking at occupancy modeling, count-based population estimate. We would collect the SD cards from these game cameras is very tedious work because when we would take that back to our offices and manually sort through each individual image and sort those into species folders, as well as with ELK taking it a step further and sorting them into age and sex. Ben and I, between us, have probably sorted through over a million individual pictures, and we're actually training AI through the past about 4 years. All of our data, we're trying to train AI to do this for us.
We actually have over half a billion photos. No kidding.
And so, yeah, just looking at those pictures and gathering all that was a lot of data. And then so we also, with our GPS colors, that's where we were looking at trying to answer our questions about like movement and habitat utilization and all of those types of things. So habitat selection, migration, and movement analysis. And this picture here on the right shows, or on the left shows, just some of the data as a map of some of our collar data. So you can see that, it's kind of cool, you can see the two main migration corridors there from the high country summer range to the winter range. This one at the bottom is a separate herd that we have color on a little further downriver. With our scat sampling, that we were looking at elk distribution and captured DNA-based capture. So really getting a population estimate from individual DNA. We just send those samples off to a lab we contracted at UC Berkeley to run DNA for individuals, and then, like Ben said, we would revisit those sites and see if the elk were, individuals were staying there, using the same place, or different ones were moving in and out, and getting population estimate from that individual DNA. With our drive surveys, we were looking at distance sampling, population estimate. So as Ben said, we would drive up the highway. We had about a 20, well, this one was like sometimes between 20 and 40 mile range distance we would travel twice a month, and just kind of count whatever elk if we were lucky enough to see them, whatever elk we would see, and getting that distance population there. Another part of our project that became really valuable to us was our community reports. So this wasn't actually written into our project. It was something that just kind of naturally happened with our community being very excited about the work that we were doing. Once they started hearing that we were learning about elk again, they wanted to share what they knew about elk and where they were seeing elk. And these reports were coming in extremely detailed, and we quickly realized that this was very valuable data. And we developed a way of organizing the data. And like I mentioned, the reports would come in very detailed. So it would be like time of day, the weather, how many elk, how many cows, bulls, babies, where they were, like detailed descriptions of where they seen them. And we were able to actually using Google Earth and going out on the landscape, getting waypoints from all these reports. Oh wow! Yeah, so those came in really important. So what we learned, what we were able to show with this work was that elk had a positive response to broadcast birding treatments. They had a slight negative response to either before, during, and after. They had a slight negative response to just understory thinning, pile, and pile burning, but they had the most positive response to a combination of understory thinning, brushing, pile burning, and cyclical broadcast burns in one area, multiple year burns in one area, which is the treatment that most closely resembles traditional Karuk land management. And that's going to introduce you all very quickly to our next project, the Sahpihnîich project.
Yeah, just like a lot of native folks, along this northwest California, we depend on salmon in our diet. We have and still do. It's very important food, but it's also directly affected by beaver habitat and what they do with the ponding and everything is they create along the tributaries along the Klamath rivers where they make these ponds, and they're great for raising these salmon in there, and is also the results. It enhances the riparian areas. It creates these beavers really help the whole ecosystem out, and so.
I'm gonna go ahead and skip along, sorry.
Yeah.
We got like 3 minutes.
I'm going slower after I apologize.
So similarly with our elk, our beaver were wiped out of our area. This was during the boom in the fur trade, and not much is known about their current status or the distribution of beaver along the main stem Klamath, and that's kind of where we set out with this project. There are very large-scale restoration projects happening on the Klamath River, so the removal of the four dams on the Klamath River, blocking hundreds of miles of beaver salmon habitat for over 100 years. And so that's
the dams are coming out this year.
This year, that work started. So and so yeah, we wanted, and then multiple other restoration projects happening. Here's just a few images. We have Karuk people there, species that are impacted by stream restoration. Lots of stream restoration happening in our area. BDAs, off-channel pond building, just to encourage beavers to be moving in. Lots of work being done in our basketry material. Lots of burning on river bars for our willow. And willow is also extremely important to beaver because it's their main food source in our area. And so when we're enhancing our willow, we're enhancing that for us as well as for beaver. And so this project was to kind of look at piloting methods for monitoring beaver response to these projects and getting a baseline knowledge of distribution of beaver in the main stem Klamath. Ben, I don't know if you want to run through.
Yeah,
we just very quickly.
We used DNA sampling with Hannah and Matthew who are over here. They came down with all these samples to do the DNA samples. We did float surveys with his kayaks, and then we walked up and down some creeks, and we put up some game cameras, and actually got like some of those pictures. You see, those were pictures from our game cameras. So right on.
Community involvement.
She passed this one off to me this morning, but yeah, so it's similar to the elk community reports. We got beaver community reports, and we're gonna do some more interviews. We did just impromptu. Well, they interviewed my nephew and Jessica and myself for these beaver things, and stories of people talking about beavers. And so there's even a family of beavers that show up in Orleans by the bridge.
So talking about kind of what we saw with these different methods was, this is a map here that Hannah had made of our float surveys, and we would flow different reaches of the main stem Klamath and look for beaver sign, is how those would go. And so this is a map of those reaches, as well as the orange dots are the places where we see recent beaver sign. With the eDNA, we sampled around 20 different tributaries, and we had beaver DNA in 4 of those. One of those, Sugar Creek, was our control, because we knew there were beaver in that area. I wish I could go into a little bit more detail about this, sorry y'all. But yeah, so continuing forward in our future work, we plan, we're starting up our beaver float surveys again here in the next couple of months, as soon as the river will let us be on it. And we do plan on continuing all of those methods, maybe a little bit less with the walk surveys, as they weren't as, they didn't give us as much and as little bit harder to cover ground doing those. So all of this work is basically for these outcomes, hopefully. To have co-management, we're working on a co-management agreement for elk with the state, and so to have co-management of our wildlife, to be able to once again be managing our landscape, managing our places. Ecocultural revitalization was right after that, and to work toward having more food sovereignty through being able to use Western science and to inform fishing, hunting, and subsistence policies that currently limit our access to our foods. Thank you. I also forgot to mention, both of these projects were led by traditional ecological knowledge and Indigenous science, but they were carried out as collaborations with a number of different partners. So with the Sahpihnîich, we worked with University of Washington, 2 grad students, and Maddie and Hannah and their advisor Cleo. And with the Beaver Project, a lot of the maps and images you were seeing that represented our data were from them. And then for our elk project, we worked with Thomas Connor, contracted postdoc from UC Berkeley, and a lot of the elk data was from the work that he had done with our research.
That was awesome. I have lots of questions, but I'm not going to take time. Q&A.
This is really important work that you're doing, and it has a lot of policy implications on a much larger scale, because these issues occur all over the U.S., not just in one local. So I'm wondering, have you been able to publish your findings to get them out to a wider audience? And is there somewhere I can read about what you're doing?
Yeah, so we have published, I think we've published 2 research articles, and we're working on our 3rd right now, which is about our community reports and using community reports to get population estimates. The first one we published was about our research methods and fire management practices. And elk response, monitoring elk response to fire management, traditional fire management. And the second one was about remote sensing data. I'm not 100% where to find all of them.
You could email us, the wildlife team, and we could forward some stuff to you if you're interested.
Yeah.
Just stay in contact with us.
Some of them are on magazines that require subscriptions, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but.
And some of these little boys just went outside. Oh, okay.
There was one over here. Go ahead.
Oh, cool.
Hi, very good presentation. And you mentioned that you are having collaboration with faculty and students from University of Washington, Berkeley, and so on. I think there will be a lot of interest in University of Oregon, so you should be able to get a lot of help from such collaboration. Is that increasing now that you are making progress?
I think that it is increasing, but also at the same time, we're encouraging a lot of our local youth to become these researchers, to enter into higher education, grad school, and that we can build the capacity within our own community to be the ones doing this work. We greatly appreciate all of the work that we do with our partners and with outside researchers, but we do encourage that, and so hopefully one day we'll have more capacity to just do it within our communities. But yeah, I think our department has always had kind of these relationships with different universities, starting with California, Berkeley. There's this big collaborative that we almost started quite a few of our programs. And so that collaborative spirit is built into our department, and it's built into our culture as well, from our creation stories and our stories about fire management. our traditional stories. And so we're always open to collaboration.
Hi, that was a really great presentation, thank you. As you start to co-manage with the state, the elders, will that include negotiating for tags and being on the priority list?
I don't know if I can quite answer that right now. We're in a very early process with lawyers and everything, and a lot of stuff isn't public right now, so I don't feel super comfortable answering that, but that's what the goal is, that we can feed our people and that we can take care of our relatives while they and